The evening began like a quiet secret whispered only to the night. Istanbul's skyline shimmered softly in the distance, the city lights twinkling like scattered stars. Inside a modest, warmly lit apartment, Demet Özdemir stood before the mirror, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. Today wasn't just any day. Tonight carried a weight, an unspoken hope wrapped tightly with fragile threads of memory and longing. She had prepared for this night for days. The dress she chose was elegant yet simple, a pale cream color that caught the light with every movement. It was the same dress she'd once worn on a spontaneous trip, when laughter filled the air and worries seemed distant and small. Her fingers traced the fabric gently, as if hoping the material could somehow shield her from the uncertainty ahead. She had spent hours deciding on the perfect hairstyle, loose waves that framed her face softly, falling just past her shoulders. The scent of her favorite jasmine perfume lingered in the air, the fragrance a subtle reminder of moments they had shared together. Her phone buzzed briefly, a message lighting up the screen, "I'll be there. See you soon." A small smile curved her lips. That simple sentence made her heart race, sending a flood of butterflies swirling through her stomach. This wasn't just a meeting. This was the meeting, the one that could change everything. The restaurant they chose was tucked away on a quiet street, a hidden gem known only to a few. It wasn't flashy or grandiose, but it held 1,000 memories. A table in the corner where they had shared whispered secrets and stolen glances. The candle on the table flickered softly, casting warm shadows that danced along the walls. Demet arrived early, as she always did when hope filled her soul. She sat down and glanced around, drinking in the familiar atmosphere. The soft hum of quiet conversations and the clinking of glasses created a comforting background. Every sound from the door made her pulse quicken, footsteps, the bell tinkling, a burst of laughter from a nearby table. Could that be him? Was he finally here? She reached for her phone, fingers trembling as she checked for messages. Nothing new. She leaned back, closed her eyes briefly, and took a deep breath. Maybe he's just running late. Her mind drifted back to the early days, the way their eyes met across crowded rooms, the stolen moments filled with promise and possibility. She remembered how his laughter could light up the darkest corners of her heart, how his touch made the world disappear. But those days felt like a distant dream now. Months of silence, cold goodbyes, and unanswered questions had wrapped around her like a heavy cloak. Yet, tonight, she still clung to a fragile hope. Minutes stretched into hours. The candle burned lower. Her phone remained silent. The waiter approached quietly, concern etched on his face. "Would you like to order something?" he asked gently. She smiled weakly, shaking her head. "No, thank you. I'm waiting for someone." Time seemed to freeze. Her heart, once full of warmth, now felt heavy with emptiness. The bustling restaurant faded into a blur. Her thoughts became a silent storm, memory swirling with pain and longing. Why didn't he come? Had something changed? Did he still care? Back in her apartment later that night, Demet removed her makeup slowly, each stroke a bittersweet ritual. The dress lay crumpled on the floor, its elegance lost to the night's disappointment. The familiar scent of jasmine still clung faintly to her skin. Her phone sat lifeless on the dresser, no missed calls, no messages. She sat down at her desk, pulling open an old leather-bound diary she hadn't touched in years. Pen in hand, she began to write. I waited. I believed. I thought maybe I still mattered to him. But tonight, I realized sometimes waiting is the hardest kind of loneliness. The echoes of that abandoned night lingered long after the candle burned out. But to understand why Demet Özdemir sat alone, waiting and hoping, we need to rewind to the moments when everything began to unravel. It wasn't a dramatic explosion of emotions or a public scandal that drove them apart. Instead, it was the quiet erosion of trust, the slow fading of warmth, the silences that grew louder than words. They were two stars shining brightly in their own orbits. Their worlds were full of cameras, scripts, and endless public expectations. But behind the glitz and glam, the pressure was immense, to be perfect, to be untouchable, to be unbreakable. The early days were like a dream. Fleeting weekends away, stolen phone calls in the middle of the night, promises whispered in the shadows. They believed their love could survive anything. But time exposed cracks. Late-night misunderstandings turned into cold shoulders. Messages went unanswered. Plans were cancelled without explanation. Each small disappointment piled up like stones on a fragile bridge. Demet often wondered if they were speaking different languages, one of hope, the other of doubt. One night, after an argument that ended with no resolution, they agreed to take a break. "Maybe we need time to think," he said softly. "Maybe," she replied, voice trembling. That break stretched on. Days became weeks. Weeks turned into months. During this time, Demet's life felt like a series of half-finished scenes, smiles for the cameras masking a heartbreaking behind closed doors. She told herself she was strong. That she didn't need him to be whole. But in the quiet moments, when the city slept and the spotlight dimmed, the loneliness hit hardest. She replayed their last conversations, searching for clues, for signs that maybe there was still hope. When he sent that message promising he'd come that night, it felt like a lifeline, a chance to bridge the distance between them. But as the hours passed and the reality set in, the pain of abandonment cut deep. That night wasn't just about waiting for a missed meeting. It was about waiting for a love that was slipping away. The night stretched endlessly before Demet, a canvas painted with shadows and silent questions. Alone at the table, the absence of his presence echoed louder than any words could. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest with every passing minute, each second a slow drip of hope fading away. She thought about the laughter they once shared, the way his eyes sparkled when he teased her, the warmth of his hand in hers during chilly Istanbul evenings. But now, all she had was the cold bite of solitude. Her phone remained dark, refusing to light up with the message she so desperately longed for. She tried to distract herself, focusing on the candle's flame, watching it flicker and dance, as if mocking her loneliness. Memories crashed like waves, the first time they met, the tender good mornings, the dreams they wove together in whispers. Why had it all ended in silence? She reached for her coat, wrapping it tighter around her as if to hold herself together. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing her broken. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the small tragedy unfolding in the quiet corner of the restaurant. Passers-by laughed, lovers embraced, and life continued, indifferent to her waiting. Back in the solitude of her apartment, the walls closed in, amplifying the ache inside. She sank onto the couch, clutching a pillow like a lifeline. Her thoughts raced, questions without answers, hopes without promises. The ache was raw and consuming. But in that darkness, a spark began to flicker. A realization that her worth was not defined by someone's absence. That sometimes, the most profound love story begins with loving yourself first. Her story wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about transformation. And with every step forward, the memory of that lonely night grew less painful, replaced by a quiet pride in how far she had come. The night that once felt like the end was slowly becoming a beginning. Demet Özdemir's loneliest night, filled with silence and unanswered questions, had awakened something deeper inside her, a strength she didn't know she possessed. In the days that followed, the ache of abandonment softened, replaced by a quiet determination. She began to rebuild herself piece by piece, like a delicate mosaic crafted from shards of broken dreams and newfound hope. Each morning, she faced the mirror not with sorrow, but with resolve. The woman looking back was no longer defined by waiting or by the absence of someone else. She was her own person, whole and complete. She started saying no to half-hearted promises and yes to moments of joy she could create herself. She threw herself into dancing again, not for the cameras or roles, but simply for the love of movement, a way to express the emotions that words couldn't capture. Traveling became her refuge. She wandered through foreign streets, feeling the pulse of new cities, breathing in fresh air that seemed to cleanse the pain away. Friends noticed the change, the lightness in her step, the genuine laughter that returned to her eyes. Behind the scenes, Demet was learning the most important lesson: the love she sought from others had to start within herself. Months passed, and with them came new beginnings and unexpected revelations. Demet Özdemir's loneliest night was no longer just a painful memory, it became a story of growth, strength, and honesty. In a heartfelt interview, when asked about love and second chances, Demet's voice carried both vulnerability and wisdom. "I believe sometimes," she said, "that the second chance was the first one we didn't take seriously enough." She spoke openly about the night he never showed up, how it shattered her but also taught her to value herself more than ever. Fans were captivated not just by her fame and talent, but by her authenticity and courage to share her truth. The cameras no longer caught just the glamorous actress but a woman who had faced her deepest fears and come out stronger. Demet's story reminded everyone that love is complicated, sometimes painful, but ultimately transformative. She closed that chapter with grace, ready to embrace whatever the future held, knowing she was whole on her own. Sometimes, the most painful nights become the ones that lead us home, not to someone else, but back to ourselves. Demet Özdemir's loneliest night was not an end, but the first step of a new journey. A journey of self-love, resilience, and hope. Because in the silence of abandonment, we often find our loudest strength.